Wow. Hey, Bruno, Jersey City. Wow, this is so cool.
Hey.
All right. Welcome, everyone. 102. I think we need to get started. We have a packed agenda today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Maria Velasquez. I'm one of the co-founders of the Cybersecurity Marketing Society and co-moderating today with our fabulous partner, Technology Advice, Tyler Lessard from Technology Advice, and our amazing panel today. I'll let you, Tyler, take it over and introduce all of them, but just quick logistics and some things to mention. We're gonna have very few slides, which we talked about. It's going to be an amazing, almost like a focus group today. The marketers in the house, raise your hand, ask your questions. You have an undivided attention of an amazing panel of security professionals that are here to help you. We will have towards the end almost like a pitch competition, if you will, where our panelists will give live feedback on some messaging that a couple of marketers submitted ahead of time. So that's going to be super exciting. We'll have questions. Definitely get in the chat, ask your questions in the Q&A anonymously if you like. And let's have lots of fun. Yes, it will be recorded, Gary, and we will be sending everything after the webinar. But over to you, Tyler.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Maria, and thanks so much to our wonderful panelists for joining us here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a moment. But first of all, I did want to also welcome all of you here to today's session. I'm so excited about this. Maria and I have been talking about this idea for a few months of bringing together leading security experts and CISOs to have a conversation with all the marketers in the room so we can better understand directly from them what their biggest challenges and priorities are, both personally and within their broader business groups. What kinds of marketing messages and content are really working for them these days, and what's missing the mark? Do they really want to sit through a 40-slide presentation or read a 90-page long RFP or white paper, or have their preferences shifted in terms of what's really resonating with them? And, what are those buzzwords that just kind of rub them the wrong way? And what are they really excited to actually dive into? So this is going to be a really fun and interactive conversation. We've got a number of questions prepped for the panelists based on some we had submitted prior, but we also, again, will be looking for your questions throughout. So please chime in the chat and the Q&A if there are questions you'd like to get answered from these wonderful folks. Again, my name is Tyler Lessard. I'm the CMO at Technology Advice. I'm really thrilled to be hosting today's session here. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Technology Advice is a global media publisher. We're actually one of the largest IT media publishers. We own and operate brands such as Tech Republic, technologyadvice.com, as well as eSecurity Planet, which have large global audiences of both IT and cybersecurity professionals who engage with our news content, our editorial updates on different topics and trending information. We also do product reviews and offer buyer guides. And those are all built by our editorial team of more than 200 folks who are actively doing research, writing, and production every single day to stay up to speed on what's happening in the worlds of IT and security. And our mission is actually to work with technology providers like all of you to help connect you with folks across our ecosystem who are actively researching new technologies. So our DNA and our mission is to connect vendors in the market with the right buyers, which is why this panel is so close to my heart as we're doing just that live here, bringing the marketers and the IT professionals together to have a real live conversation, which is great. And in terms of how we do this, this will be my last comment before we hop into it. But just so you all know, how we do that is we do develop custom content for our customers. We offer advertising as well as lead generation solutions across our media sites, again, to help you connect with these folks who are out there actively researching different cybersecurity topics. So we hope to connect with you following this to see if we might be able to help with your H2 plans for 2025. One last thing I wanted to note is at the end of this session, you will get links to some of our latest research, which I'm really excited about. We have a great buyer insights report that we did late last year, but we also have just launched our new cybersecurity marketing handbook, which has over 150 channels that marketers like you are reaching cybersecurity professionals on. So it's a really great cheat sheet, and we'll be sharing that afterwards as well. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that and to keep an eye out for it as we hop into this. So without further ado, let's hop in and meet our different panelists. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in order of what we see up here on the screen. So, Eamon, if you wouldn't mind, please hop in and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Tyler. Hey, everyone. Eamon Elswell. I'm the founder of Cloud Security Labs, where I help startups with their security journey as a fractional CISO. So I've been doing that for quite some time, working with big and large companies, mostly scale-ups. And also working on the Security Cafe, where I'm sharing my knowledge and experience through community and live classes and helping CISOs launch their fractional CISO business. So thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thanks for being here. All right, Nia, over to you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here. A little bit about me. I got my start working within the public sector, specializing in controls, kind of compliance. I know, super exciting and riveting. But now I support high performing teams out of the Office of the CISO, spanning various organizations, helping really tackle some complex problems that we really need to address, especially in 2025. So happy to be here.
Terrific. Well, we are so happy to have you here. Thanks again for taking time out to be with us. And next we will have Ronnie.
Hi, everyone. Ronnie Lostrom, Director of Strategy. I work in the Customer Security Management Office, which is a new team at Microsoft's Office of the CISO. Our goal is to work directly with CISOs at the top 500 to 1,000 customers at Microsoft. And I have a really fun, nerdy role. I get to be the storyteller and I build the strategy for how we talk about the work in Office of the CISO and how we protect Microsoft.
Terrific. Well, I'm looking forward to your insights as somebody who sits at that intersection of marketing and the customer. So this should be a really fun conversation. And finally, Franco.
Hey everybody, my name is Franco Velasquez and I lead the SIM engineering at SAP's Cyber Fusion Center, specifically the public sector. I also serve there as the incident commander, and my background includes both enterprise and government work, including some work with the intelligence community. So I bring a cross-sector perspective to security operations. And I've also advised smaller companies, and I've seen how different size orgs struggle and scale very differently in different ways.
Amazing. All right. So we have a really great breadth of knowledge and experience here and folks in different roles. So we're going to hop in and we've got this broken down into three parts. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the security priorities that these folks are seeing in the market, which is something a lot of you asked you'd like to know about. And then we're going to dive right into like what kind of marketing messaging is really actually working these days. So I want to start by learning a little bit more about what each of you are seeing as some of the big priorities or top trends in the space right now. So I'm going to start this one with Eamon, and the question I want to ask is, what have you seen emerge as some of the key security challenges recently over the last year or two? Are there any like big challenges you're seeing team members surfacing, or as you're talking with peers in the community, like what's really hot in 2025 that is top of mind for a lot of security leaders?
Yeah, let's see how long I could go without saying the two-letter word throughout this. But in general, identity is just still an issue all around. I think what I'm actually seeing is more companies coming around to the fact that identity is the new perimeter, for example, and that they really need to work on that and let go of some of the traditional items. But yeah, if we are gonna talk and be about 2025, data leakage and AI, the usage of AI. And what's interesting is there's a couple of camps. There's folks, at least from the security folks, like just very afraid of AI and just want to block it everywhere. But as we all know in the practitioner world, you could try to block people all you want, but they're still going to work around you. So best to work with them and then help them with their goals. So those are the two things I'm seeing out there right now.
Yeah, that's great. I dropped that quote in the chat that identity is the new perimeter, and I think it's a really interesting space. And as you mentioned, the two-letter word that Gary says, "Hey, I don't get it." which is perfect. So, as AI continues to evolve, it is increasingly difficult for all of us to know what's real, what's not, who's who out there in the space. And I think, again, as marketers, there's a lot of opportunity for us to really align with that conversation without overloading our messaging with AI, but really, what are the problems that AI is creating or the challenges that it's creating that we really need to get to at the surface level. Nia, I'm curious from your perspective in your new role, as well as your broader experience, what are you seeing as big trends in 2025 in the security space?
So to echo a little bit of what Eamon just kind of laid out there, right, in terms of the new perimeter, I am in violent agreement that identity is a part of that new perimeter. But right in alignment with that is trust. And that can take many forms. For me specifically, I think the two critical areas that I'm keying in on for 2025 versus 2024 would be where are we at in regards to our third-party risk management and supply chain vulnerabilities. And second to that, how are we managing our hybrid environments, right? We're not seeing organizations comprised of primarily on-prem or primarily cloud. It's a hybrid everywhere I walk, every conversation I'm having. So what does that strategy look like? What disciplines do you have in place? Because as we all know, a strategy is great, but without the discipline to perform that trust, where the strategy is pretty much, I don't want to say useless, but it's difficult to implement and especially provide value, because at the end of the day, what we're here to do is exactly that: improve trust, provide value and security over time.
All right. We're already hearing some phrases that marketers, I think, are writing down. They're like, all right, we got to get in improving trust, which again is something we've always been thinking about, but its alignment there to the challenges with identity, I think, are very clear. And I think there's some really, interesting themes here, which I'm not surprised to hear with based on where the market has gone the last couple of years, but some pretty clear imperatives that we're seeing. Ronnie, from your perspective, you get to work and have this unique view in working both with internal security teams as well as with Microsoft clients and hearing about what's happening on their side. What are you seeing as some of the big topics as we head into the second half of the year? And does that align with what Nia and Eamon spoke to?
It does, definitely supply chain and identity. But some of the less sexy things to talk about that we frequently have conversations with our customers on are cleaning up tech debt. Everyone's got it. Microsoft is not alone. It is a massive, massive problem, especially as people are transitioning to a hybrid cloud world. We need to just rise that bar with cyber hygiene. Data classification is huge, especially now that AI is exacerbating existing, access issues. When are you doing just in time, just enough permissions? When was the last time you checked your RBAC, settings, privileged access? And then the last thing that I think is more interesting and fun for the marketers is we're really starting to talk about how attackers think in graphs, defenders think in lists, and we need to shift that mindset. You have to be able to see the connections in your data in order to avoid those blind spots.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I'm curious for the three of you before I move on to Franco. As you talk about some of these different themes, are there specific solution areas or technologies that are really bubbling up as, again, like priorities that you or your teams are thinking about that, may feel like you have as gaps today based on some of these emerging priorities or areas where you really think companies are doubling down their investments in the year ahead or as you look ahead at 2026? Any takers?
Managed identity comes to mind for me. That's a big thing we're starting to talk about or already talking about a lot with customers. And then I think, people are going to use security. I love to use myself as an example. I'm a career marketer, but I've been in security now for the past 10 years. And before I understood what security was and why it was so necessary, I was so good at getting around it. I always got whatever I needed to accomplish done because I had a deadline and could get around whatever security rules were set in place. So people are going to be adopting AI. We have to have the tools to secure it, track it, understand what's going on. So I would look into those tools as well.
And if I could weigh in, I think other tooling that's becoming critical is data, right? So anything that can help you wrap your arms around data sprawl, data entropy, right? Two big terms coming out of Q1 already, is going to be huge because we need to know what we don't know. And that's really difficult for large scale organizations like AT&T or Microsoft or the Googles of the world to define. And the tools that are emerging, they're great, but to what extent, right? Are we able to see it all? And can I get that visibility to my executives is my question.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's not only protecting the data itself, but it's even just understanding and knowing where is the data, where is it going, where has it found itself, where are, derivatives of it actually living, and especially in those hybrid environments, as you talked about, which can be increasingly complex.
Correct.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just about the basics. Just get the basics right. I mean, like IT, just a lot of times, a lot of companies don't have good IT hygiene, and even their infrastructure, piggybacking on the backup part, they have all their eggs in one basket. They think the cloud is everything, but like, it's all in one region. There's no backups at all. And I come in and do a DR tabletop, and they're like, "Oh, yeah." I'm like, "What would you do here?" It's like, "Oh, we'd probably shut down business." I'm like, "Oh, that's not a good idea." So, yeah, let's just work on the basics. I think 2025, we're still working on the basics, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it's no surprise to hear that, really. And what's interesting as well is the foundations are starting to shift, and even those who have had the basics, like those basics are starting to actually, change in terms of what we need to be thinking about with, hybrid now being so common, again, AI services being common, data moving everywhere, and identity being questionable. So without the fundamentals, we're in a rough space, but even those are starting to change, which I think is causing, again, we're seeing more demand than ever for cybersecurity products. So it's not surprising to hear. Franco, I got to bring you into the conversation, my friend. You're somebody who focuses a lot on incident management, incident response. And I'm curious what you've seen. I know we have a lot of folks on the line who live in that world, who have technology in that space. What are you seeing in this area specifically? What types of challenges are you facing, and what types of solutions are actually standing out to you these days?
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. One of the things that I'm seeing out there that it's really valuable to me, it's how to empower the tier one analysts, right? So how do you empower that tier one analyst who may not have the experience to triage correctly or take the appropriate decisions? That's huge, right? So something like the Elastic Security Assistant that came out recently in the last couple of years, that's been huge, right? Because you get an alert and it kind of helps you walk through the whole step, right? What you should do next, right? Also, automation is a big thing, right? Um, Splunk, for example, also came out with a feature where you can kind of talk to it normally, plain English, but it helps you to search the data, right? So it really empowers that tier one analyst, right? You don't have to be an SPL expert. You don't have to be an expert in triaging in order to do your job, right? So that's one of the most valuable things that I've seen out there today. Now, in terms of challenges, has always been how do you detect better? How do you reduce that detection time? How do you reduce that mean time to respond, right? So any tool that can help us to see what's out there, not just things that we already know about, but things that we maybe forgot about, like we were just saying, right? Um, Everybody has that sort of baggage that we forget about. So if you can come into the environment and tell us, hey, you have these things out there, these assets that nobody's really looking at, but they're there. So you can't detect anything on there, but they can be leveraged against you, right? So having that visibility is huge. Uh, so anything that can highlight any of that would be a good value to bring in. Um, and then the whole thing of cyber intelligence also is a huge thing that I think is very valuable to organizations in this space and to security teams because, in order to detect, we also have to bring in a lot of data. But what sort of data are we going to be bringing in, right? And if you just say, well, we're going to look at a document that's a standard, logging standard that's going to tell us what to do. Great, that might be a good baseline. However, how do we know that the threat actors are actually coming in, and we're missing them because we don't have the appropriate logs, right? So using cyber intelligence these days is really good because it allows us to know what the hacker techniques are, what their procedures are, right? Their TTPs. And that also helps us to onboard the correct set of logs, right? So that way we're doing risk informed threat intelligence and logging uh, you know, capabilities there.
That's great. Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of innovation in this space, both from like a services perspective, for threat networks and understanding the potential entry points and risk factors out there. And it seems like more and more the product side of the house is also bringing those in and becoming more dynamic engines for understanding where are the potential threats coming from, what do I need to be looking at, but need to be more dynamic than ever because things are changing and they're needing to find things in a little bit more real time. But there's an interesting extension to that, which and we had a question ahead of time submitted that I want to bring in at this point because you talked about, as we are seeing a lot of these different alerts and signals, and we have to be, looking in lots of different places now. We're also seeing analysts like the tier one analysts you talk about. While we're trying to empower them, they're also inundated in some cases with more, alerts and notifications than ever before. I'm going to read this question out from one of our guests here, and I'd love your opinion on it. So they said, according to CISO magazine, about 70% of analysts complain that their personal lives are being impacted by alert volumes. Analyst burnout and the workforce gap comes up everywhere, all sorts of industry research, analysts, and so on. So it seems like that's a real issue. And yet, as a vendor, they don't hear a lot of buyers actually talking about that. And they've gone about publishing content, sort of talking about that challenge of burnout for analysts and, the impact that has on job fulfillment, retention, and execution. But again, they're not seeing traction with that. And they're typically not really seeing CISOs necessarily talking about it. So the real question is like, why not? Do CISOs and security leaders really care about this potential burnout and workforce gap based on more alerts than ever coming through? And sort of a corollary to that is how can they more effectively message that so it resonates with you all that this is a real problem, that it's not just a people problem, it's a technology problem to make sure that they're highlighting the right alerts at the right time rather than just pushing everything over.
Yeah, it's
I
a
know
really
there's
good
a lot there.
question.
If you could unpack that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, like we said before, if your tool brings in a value that reduces risk, that's gonna be already something that we're gonna look at. I mean, CISOs are gonna care about burnout when it increases that dwell time, the turnover for the roles and if that also causes some sort of audit failure and things like that, right? How it impacts the operations. Uh, which at the end of the day, all of that stuff translates into business risks, right? But I wouldn't market your solution as therapy or anything like that. I would market your solution as risk mitigation, right? Lower that risk because that's going to, at the end of the day, lower the burnout and eventually the turnover for those analysts and even the higher, roles that are accountable for those lower level analyst roles. So,
That's great.
yeah.
And Tyler, if I can weigh in on this one
Please.
too, a little bit of just a translation exercise, because I've seen the same where we're talking burnout at the team levels all day, every day, myself included. But at the senior executive levels, that really translates more to capacity management, right? So from a marketing swing, if we could just think a little bit more externally and how to translate that better, it's the same conversation and the points are equally valid. But if we could start building in a way to say, hey, here's your risk reduction, here's your capacity management that is, being brought to the forefront by this tooling capability, I think it can shift the conversation more productively, so that it does keep the employees in mind when implementing these complex solutions.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And for folks who are curious in this space, and if you have questions about your specific messaging or what might resonate, I'm sure our panelists won't mind when I say feel free to connect with these folks on LinkedIn, online, and feel free to share an idea with them and get some quick feedback. Again, they're very generous with offering to help here, and there's already some really good nuggets of verbiage that you can be using. So thank you both for that. That's great. There was another question that came in before we move into sort of the buying process that I wanted to get some perspectives on. For those of you who do live in the firewall area and think about that as part of your purview, this question was related to firewall policy management in terms of like how much this is becoming a priority or is a priority for businesses today. And the question is as follows. We're finding that a lot of companies are spending, $5 million plus on firewall infrastructure, but they don't necessarily have the right policy management in place across firewalls, and in which case they can, sometimes become more or less glorified routers. Their words, not mine. How do you think about firewall policy management in the months ahead as a portion of your spend on firewalls, particularly environments where you have multiple firewall vendors and you need to ensure consistent policy management? And the extension to that is this a CISO level problem? Is it something that you all care about, or is this more of a practitioner level challenge of overall firewall policy management? Nia, do you want to take a first stab at this one? Were you?
Sure. And this kind of just takes me back to my time at Cisco, right? And at that time, we were standing up a security operations center for public sector, for the entire portfolio. So a lot of things that are relevant more now in 2025 than they were back then is actually not necessarily the firewall policies themselves, but the actual administrative control policy drivers and contractual languages that are in place for that portfolio, right? What are the rules and what are the left-right limits governing how our engineers are supposed to, build out that firewall correctly so that data is protected, not only on the external side, but on the internal side, right? What does that flow look like? How many any firewall rules do we have out there? And I know in public sector, that's a huge no-no, but in private sector, it's like, oh, you found a golden egg. But the reality is it comes down to what's governing that, right? And I will say I am seeing a really refreshing shift that we're having these conversations, right? What is a process without a policy? There is no governance. And so think about it in those terms, because then you are justified in asking that question as it relates to the spend amount, right? We're not in the business of really expensive routers. We're in the business of setting up a perimeter that not only protects internal business data, but in a way that allows communication safely with our third-party vendors and vice versa.
Love it. Wonderful.
Hey,
Amen.
Tyler.
Yes, Maria.
Sorry, just wanted to do a quick time check. We're at 1:30, and then we also have about 3 questions in the Q&A and a few in the chat. So you let me know when you'd like to hop into those.
Perfect. All right, well, let's use that as a cue to move into our second part, because I know this is something that is on all of your marketers' minds. This is all about the buying teams and how we really get inside the heads of what's going on when they're evaluating new solutions. So this one, I'll folks raise your hand if you want to take a shot at this one. I would love for any of you to think about a new security software product that you've recently researched, evaluated, or purchased. So within your team, maybe there's something new that you've bought in the last year or something that you've been evaluating. And I would love just for you to share with all of our marketing friends here a little bit about that experience. What category was that in, just so we have the context. But more importantly, like what different roles in your team are involved in that? Is it like a couple people? Is it, an army of 20? And do you recall anything that really stands out from that experience that went well or didn't that our marketers should hear about? So do I have any brave volunteers to share a little story about, a recent evaluation or buying process in this space?
Uh-oh.
Nope.
I mean, I have one, but I'm trying not to take like all of the airtime.
Why don't you go ahead and if any others think of anything else that they've done, let us know. But yeah, what area was that in?
Sure. So it's from my recent past, so not my current role. 3 weeks into my current role, but in the recent past, for one of the clients, we were really trying to solve for the ability to continuously perform with an audit trail, IAM attestation and role reviews, permissioning reviews, things of that nature. And the bake off ended up being between Tenable and Palo Alto. What I will say in the end is that in terms of being able to jump on a call and demonstrate seamlessly exactly what our requirements were, Tenable knocked it out of the park. Palo had some of the capabilities, but then in other ways, they would have had to be feature requests, which again, if I'm the person sitting on the call, if I hear a feature request, it's almost an immediate red flag because I need functionality now. I've already had to spend time to get buy-in to say, hey, we're about to increase complexity, right? And I need a way to defend that. And the way I defend that is how fast can we reach our return on investment? So what Tenable was able to do was take what we had in terms of case studies, turn that into action. And I mean quickly, in less than 30 days, pull us onto a call, demo the capability, and then do a side-by-side walk-in when we were ready to pull the trigger. It was a massive differentiator, especially in the IAM space, because not what I just touched on is not easy to achieve, especially when you're talking about hybrid environments. So
yeah, that's great. So be specific, have your assets and your materials like ready with respect to, what the customer's expectations are.
Well, and especially if the customer is going to give you the case studies, right, and the points that they're targeting, lock in on that, right? They're almost giving you the cheat sheet. But I also appreciate Paolo's, transparency and saying, hey, we could do 1 and 2, but 3 is going to be a feature request. That takes a lot. So lead with integrity, right? But also be able to lock in on the ask and knock that out of the park without slides and fluff.
Yeah, and there was a related, more general question here. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Franco.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in on one of my experiences here. Recently, we evaluated another SIM, and one of the things that they were able to do is give us a demo with our own data. So, that was a super powerful, marketing or whatever you guys would like to call that. But it was really good because we saw the benefits of using their platform with our own data, and that was huge. So that would be
I love
another,
that.
yeah.
No, and you're absolutely right. Like some folks will think about, oh, that's a sales thing, but that is marketing as much as the sales process of, creating personalized, customized demos. It's an extension of that
Yep.
that experience overall, which is, I love that. Great idea. Yeah. I was going to ask. Oh, sorry, please, Eamon, go ahead.
No, it seems like the overall theme of basically just, have the time to value really quick for practitioners and everybody in the team. I mean, I'm kind of curious. I'm waiting for your next question. The pre wanted later, but just to chime in on this, yeah, just have some good time to value. Understand the decision process, where the technical folks want to know like, hey, is this working or not? And I love what Nia said about like feature requests. If someone says every time a vendor promises, oh yeah, we could do that, I'm like, how long? And they're like, oh, 2 months. I'm like, well, I just double that. So that's or triple sometimes now. So it depends. Although there are smaller companies that will turn around some feature requests really quick. So depends what you're looking for. You want stability. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that's great.
Usually who's involved from my experience in evaluating these sorts of tools is, when we look at an EDR tool or a SIM tool or even something like a Tenable, we usually have the IR lead, the SIM lead, the SecOps teams lead, right? And we pull in some compliance advisors because since we support the public sector, we want to make sure that these tools are mapped appropriately, right? And really at the end of the day, what we really care about also is making sure that the tool that we bring in, our security engineering team can implement them fast, but also knocking out and checking off those security controls, right? And being able to pull that evidence and show that later in an audit. So if you come to us and say, hey, we know that you need to operate within FedRAMP moderate, here is our software. We're already, authorized, right? And here's all the controls that we will help you to check off in an audit. Here's all the controls that we're mapped to, right? If you can do that, that really is also something that is valuable to anybody who's evaluating your tool. So have that control mapping is good.
And Franco, you just touched on something really important. And so for the broader audience, this is coming out of Los Angeles. I was there for a CISO forum earlier this year. Just because you're SOC, like SOC accredited, be prepared for a much longer conversation. It's come to the attention of a lot of CISOs that you could actually get that accreditation within 30 days. So then we're questioning how thorough was that evaluation.
Yeah. And a lot of CISOs know how to pass these things because, I mean, you can say, look over here, look over here. Don't look over here. Look over here, look over here, and then you'll pass, right? So, yeah, be ready for that.
Excellent. All right, we're gonna dive into a important question that I think like 10 different people pre-submitted before this, and it's a very blunt question. How can we get a security leader or CISO's attention? Right? Everybody is like in crowded markets. We all know we're all your inboxes are filled with sales and marketing messages. And everybody just wants to know how the heck can we break through and actually get you to care, to pay attention? Or are you not the right people to be trying to get in front of early on in a process? So I'd love to hear any perspectives you all have on that. Eamon, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah. There's like, first of all, there's a whole list of things don't do. Okay. And we could talk about the things do. Like, don't send a calendar invite. Don't all these like, Brian, you see these on LinkedIn. So don't do those tactics, please. Call them on their cell phone. Anyway. But yeah, just some more insight on that. Yeah, sometimes the CISO is the buyer, but the decision maker, the one who's influencing the decision, is the engineer or the architect or someone technical on the team. What I would say is, show me what the product. Well, first of all, I would say just be a good listener. Okay, so there's two parts to that. One is listen to the other side. If you actually get in front of them, listen to what their problems are. Okay, and then see if your product can solve those problems, and just don't overpromise. Don't say that your product is gonna fix all their problems. We don't want to hear that. We can tell right away what's going to work, what's not going to work. We know what we need. We are interested in seeing new things that we haven't thought of that can combine, say, three tools that we have into one tool, things like that, or do some augmented things that, say, because listen, every security team is understaffed. That's just a fact. And so, pretty much, I mean, and if they're not, then that's luxurious and it's a different problem. So you try to, how can you help this understaffed team with the load that they're trying to do, solve their problems in a way that will work, that will actually work. And then also your product needs to actually work too. So there's a lot of vaporware out there, unfortunately. So I'll stop here.
Yeah.
I would
Ronnie.
make it also about how your tool can use security, or how your tool can help security win business. Not just protect your data, not just protect your network, but protect the revenue of the company. That's a huge one, right? Because there's so many people are emailing me, so many people are sending me LinkedIn messages, and they're all about your features, right? Everything is about their feature, but you got to add some context, right? You got to use security to win contracts. So many RFPs nowadays, right? You have to answer security questionnaires. And for some smaller companies, that's taking them too long. That's making the sales flow just a little longer. They'll deal to somebody who's faster, right? So having like a transparency page, for example, where your I don't know, your partnerships, your teaming partners, even your investors can go and grab that SOC 2 report and see a lot of the things that you're doing. Just at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to showcase that you can add value to the business, not just to protect their IT, right?
Yeah, I'm already envisioning, my prospecting message to you, Franco, which is along the lines of, I'd love to, share how I help the tier one analyst at this other company be more empowered and more productive while also, improving your risk posture. And, when you start to think about things like that, of like how you can actually like empower their team members to be more productive when they're likely understaffed. And it's because it's not always about this feature, that, or securing this. I think there's a lot more to it that we could think about as marketing and sales teams. And there's also a people element to it, right? As security leaders who are trying to manage and drive high functioning teams of really important people, if we can help them be more productive and grow the business in many ways, there's lots of different angles I think that are interesting beyond just I can help you protect your data better than the other guys. Yeah. Ronnie,
Yeah, yeah.
you had something in there.
Yeah, I wanted to share a not so well kept secret. Security people generally don't like marketing and salespeople. It's true. And as a career marketer and who spent a decade in the security space, I say this with such love in my heart. But think of that when you're putting together your marketing. If you're too slick, it's going to come off as disingenuous.
Yeah.
If you use terms like single pane of glass,
Oh,
they're gonna I know, like that's like my one trigger. And to be honest, the first year I was in marketing, I used it because I didn't know better. That's a holy grail. Like it's never going to be possible. You lose credibility when you use those high level fluffy terms. People want transparency. They want honesty. And honestly, the one of the best ways that I have found to do this and be successful from a marketing standpoint is to provide this information to people online so they can surface it themselves. They don't want to talk to a sales rep. They don't really want to go through all the marketing pieces, but if on your website they can evaluate your company, see if what you're doing meets their requirements, get the details, maybe watch some videos, get links to peer recommendations and reviews from third-party independent analyst reports or review companies. Those are the things that are really going to check the boxes. And then they're going to call you. If they like your product, they will call you. But you got to give them this information so they can self-serve.
Yep. All right. Amen. Amen to all of that. And there's, again, I mean, we'll go back and watch the recording and pull out a number of notes from this, but there's, I think, some really great just commonality in terms of our needs to be, really intentional, really direct, really have high integrity in our messaging, be more value focused, less feature product focused, lots of those different pieces. And I actually want to use this now as a chance to bring on our first individual who would like to share some of their messaging to see how well it actually maps to some of these things that we've been talking about. Oh, yes, we're going to go with a live attendee. So I want to start with is Dale from Threat Connect on the call here? And if
Yes.
so, Maria, oh, excellent. Would you mind finding Dale if you are brave
Yep,
enough
I
to
found
actually
him.
come
I
on
found
camera?
him.
I am going to share my screen with pardon my slide, which has what you submitted as some of your messaging. Dale, you don't have to come on and read it verbatim, but I would love for you to hop on and let our panelists know kind of the context of your feedback question here, and then walk us through what you're looking feedback on.
All right. I'm trying to find you, Dale. Hold on. Oh, Dan,
Dan.
not Dale.
Oh, my
That's
apologies.
why I couldn't find you. There we go. Promote to panelists and allow to talk. So let's see if that works. Oh, Dan.
And I will.
There you
start.
are.
Oh, I got a promotion. I hope it comes with a raise.
There he
you are.
is. Oh, it was Dan Cole. I was smashing your name together into one. My apologies. Great
It
to
was
see you,
all your
Dan.
fault, Tyler. It was all your
Oh,
fault.
wonderful. All right.
All right, so I guess I'll just dive right in. Yeah, I'm not going to read what's on the screen. I'm just going to kind of do this verbally. So I think it was Franco who said that if a tool reduces risk, you're going to look at it. Well, boy, do I have the tool for you. So, so you've got two sides to cyber: executive leadership, that's you guys, and boots on the ground. And between them, seams, gaps, and misalignment. And what do I mean by that? Well, the cost of a breach just hit a record 4.88 million last year. That's what you guys care about. That goes back to, revenue, bottom line. Meanwhile, the actual cyber defense teams are drowning in alerts, most of which fall through the cracks. So they try to prioritize, but how do they prioritize? Well, right now it's things like technical indicators, it's gut feeling, it's whatever looks noisy. It's not what actually matters to the business. And what that means is that those cyber defense teams are missing the threats that drive that $4.88 million breach cost in the first place. And that's where we come in. So we built something called the Intel Hub. It's the first platform that enables what we call a threat and risk-informed defense. So the way it works is we take real-world cyber loss data, we map it to your assets and vulnerabilities, and that provides a precise financial risk for specific TTPs. It's dollars to threats. We then feed those threats into our threat intel platform so that your analysts can focus not on the loudest alerts, but on the ones that actually threaten your business's bottom line. And then finally, to kind of close that loop, we have an investigation assistant that helps threat hunters and incident responders instantly recognize the specific critical threats that actually align with that business risk, and then take automated action. So all of this adds up to a threat and risk-informed defense ecosystem that gives cyber defense teams the context they need to properly prioritize and act on what matters to you. Because at the end of the day, you guys don't get fired for a missed alert. You get fired for a expensive breach. And so basically, we help your teams keep you employed.
All right. So Dan, are you finding, is this messaging working? Is it not working? Do you want some feedback on specific language, or do you just want to see what our panelists sort of how they respond to what you're bringing to market here?
Well, in terms of working, it's still new. We do have a customer advisory board that seems to like it. But yeah, this is all new. I'd be curious, how well this resonates. I'd like, any feedback that you've got just in general. So yeah.
Well,
does
Dan,
it resonate? Does it appeal to the C-suite?
I like the fact that you're trying to apply context to cybersecurity, because in cybersecurity, one of the biggest issues we have is context. Why did we spend $1 million on these shiny tools and we had 3 breaches last year? How do you explain that to the executives, right? And I love the fact that you're trying to add context here, and that you're driving security operations based on the intel, and you've quantified that dollar expense, and therefore making it more appropriate for our business to say, hey, this is what we really care, and let's map some TTPs around our detection engineering efforts to go after that. So I like that. I'd be a bit cautious, again, that agent word. I don't know if that's an AI agent, but I would be cautious with the buzzwords, just because right now there's like a big shield in front of all those buzzwords from everybody I know that we work in these controlled environments. There's a lot that has to happen before we just throw in any sort of tooling in there. So I'd be careful with that.
Couple quick thoughts for me. I thought overall the pitch was good. I think you could tighten up the beginning just a little bit and get to the point quicker on how it's risk-informed defense. You've got this data that's shaping it. In reading the text on the screen, the fact that you're providing this intel specific to their business because you're using the risk data mapping to their business, I think you could maybe hammer that specific point a little harder. And then the last bit where it says then downstream, we provide a new way to investigate and automate remediation. I didn't get how you're doing that. Like that didn't translate for me. The first part I got, but the second part I didn't.
Wonderful.
And then Dan, I'll weigh in, just coming fresh out of the financial sector. Hard sell point is going to be on the exfiltration of financial data. So I think reassurances that this lives on their network, does not feed a back-end AI, are critical, especially if it is leveraging any type of automation, LLM, or ML in any capacity.
All right.
No, this was
feedback,
super.
Dan?
No, yeah, no, this was great feedback. I'm tempted to actually respond and continue to try to sell you. That is not why we are here. But yeah, no, I appreciate all the comments, around things like context, around ROI. So no, thank you all very much. This was super useful.
Excellent. And hopefully there's a few nuggets you can all pull from that in terms of, what they felt resonated. And again, great job here. And thank you, Dan. Everybody give Dan a round of applause for joining us and coming on stage. And this is great. Yeah, really, really exciting stuff you guys are doing. And it sounded like we're very close on it. So well done. All right, we're going to move to our second and last feedback on positioning. This is going to be Alex from Firemon. So Alex, hopefully you are here live. If so, perhaps you can raise your hand and Maria can find you in the list. Otherwise, there he is. Excellent.
Are you sure it's Alex? No, I'm just kidding.
75%.
Here we go.
All right.
I think I'm here, right?
Okay, there he is. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Great.
Excellent. Welcome to the show. I have some of the information you provided here on screen. Again, you don't have to read it verbatim, but I'll let you take it from here. Let the panelists know what you're looking for from a feedback perspective, and then hop into it.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, what resonated with me on this panel call is, just say it like it is and use human language. And, as marketers, we tend to just go into this cybersecurity speak of we enable the distribution of, cybersecurity to overcome the blah, blah, blah. You're just like, God, just get to the fucking point, pardon my language. So my question to you is, first one, we're thinking about a campaign, right? So the first one is much more safe, right? Firewalls are only effective when they're effectively managed, right? As security continues to be more and more complex, especially network security, right? Multiple vendors, M&A, compliance, failed audits. Managing policy complexity at scale is hard, but it doesn't have to be. That is very generic and safe. How about a firewalls suck unless they're effectively managed? And it basically kind of follows the same suit, but it's just a different tone. So what's your thoughts around, because at the end, like what cybersecurity professionals do is hard and it's important. And it's also sometimes really boring, right? Going through logs or going through, the threat intelligence that Threat Connect person Dan was talking about can get mundane. So cutting through the noise with some fun messaging may work or may not. So thoughts?
I have thoughts for you, Alex. I think it's a yes and. The first one is always going to be needed, right? You need your corporate polished language for certain instances. I think that's the type of stuff that you would have on a main page of a website.
Yep.
Second, your language on firewalls suck unless they're effectively managed. That resonates. People understand what you're saying, but there are going to be some people who will just get turned off by the word suck. My
Right.
dad, like he's that guy. I am not. I love, the irreverence. So is there a word that you can use instead of suck, like fail or something like that, that gets that same punchy language across, but wouldn't turn off the people who are a little more conservative? I do think, though, there's an opportunity for those types of fun things. Like when you're at a trade show and you're doing some sort of cool giveaway or swag item, that would be a fun thing to put on a stress ball or a coffee mug, right? That's going to get people to want to use your coffee mug. You always want those little reminders, and if it's good enough, they'll keep it around and they'll remember you and they'll see your logo. So, yes, and.
Love that. Thank you.
Any other feedback on sort of the specific language here, or even just that sort of broader idea of using kind of more casual, almost fun language in some of this marketing when messaging to either you folks or, folks on your teams who would also be looking at this?
I think Ronnie really hit it. It's about finding that balance between grabbing my attention and tact, right? And you can do that in a multitude of ways. I, again, much like Ronnie, suck isn't going to offend me, but I do know a lot of people that I work with that they're going to be turned off by the verbiage alone. Like they'll read it and they'll be like, no, like it's an immediate no. So just striking that balance is critical. I think the content in the pitch is good and it's relevant. So I think you've done that really well. But maybe give an example or two of how you guys are improving that effectiveness. That's the only takeaway I'm not really getting from this is what is your one-liner, two-liner differentiator?
Yeah.
Exactly. The how. What is your how?
We definitely have the how. Thank you for that. And what I really wanted to do is just really focus on kind of the lead in, if you will, before getting to the how. So I appreciate that. But the other thing that we're really instilling as the CMO here is reducing the cognitive overhead. Leading with so much features and functions to the point where you don't even know what the organization is trying to say, let alone help you with, right? So I'm trying to be very succinct in our messaging and be highly focused on the less cognitive overhead for the end user, right? And
Alex, I think that's a really smart way to do things. And I recommend you stage it out and let people self-select into it. So you have your high-level punchy statement on the main page of your website. There should be a button right below it. Explain how. If somebody wants to know, they're going to click that button and they're going to go and learn. But you're not going to turn somebody off who just wants the high-level message because you got too technical for them. There are CISOs who walk both of those paths. There are CISOs who are not core security people. They are business strategists and come at it from a risk standpoint or a compliance standpoint, or they just got stuck with that job at their company, And then there's other CISOs who are extremely technical and can run circles around their team. So you have to meet both of those buyers where they are.
I love the recommendation on that, high level, and then the explain how or show me how as the call to action. Then you get into the much more technical element.
Yeah.
Awesome advice. Thank you.
Yeah. Let them self-select.
Self-select in. Great. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Alex, as well, for joining us here and for bringing your question. And thank you again to our panelists for their honest and transparent and very helpful feedback. Apparently, we need to do a part 2 of this because I have another 40 questions I want to ask you all, but we are at time. So I just want to remind you all, we will follow up after this with our most recent research on cybersecurity marketing, both by our insights reports, as well as our new cybersecurity marketing handbook. We genuinely hope you find that to be valuable and find lots of new channels that you can use to reach cybersecurity leaders and experts like the folks you've heard from here today. And again, if you think we can help you reach cybersecurity buyers out there, just give us a holler. You know where to find us here at Technology Advice. This is what we do. We love to help cybersecurity teams like yours, build your brand, generate demand, and ultimately see more success with your products in markets. So please let us know if we can help. And otherwise, again, a final huge thank you and round of applause, everyone, for our panelists. Thank you again to Nia, Eamon, Franco, and Ronnie for joining us. Thanks to the Cybersecurity Marketing Society for hosting this. And we hope you enjoyed it and keep an eye out for the recording afterwards.
Yeah.
With that,
thanks,
we'll
everyone.
wrap things up. Maria, you want to hop on and close it out?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you to our panelists. We know how busy it is. Nia, 3 weeks into a new job. Really appreciate your time. See you all on the next one. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.